I write these lines by the trembling light of a candle that should no longer exist. My hand shakes so much that I can barely form the letters, but I must record what happened. I need someone to know the truth before it is too late. The black fog found us 7 days ago. No, that's not right. Let me start from the beginning, when we were still 15 men aboard the caravel Santa Estela, when we still had hope, when I could still deceive myself about who I truly was.
My name is Alonso Veras, clerk of the expedition under the command of Captain Rodrigo de Mendoza. I am 23 years old and have always considered myself a man of letters, superior to the rough sailors who make up the crew. I always thought that my education, my ability to read and write, made me better than them. How wrong I was. Let me introduce the men who sailed with me, the men who are no longer here. It is important that their names be remembered, even if I am the last one to speak them. Captain Rodrigo de Mendoza was a veteran of 46 years, his face weathered by salt and sun. A tough man, a few words but fair. He had sailed these waters for over 20 years and knew the sea like few others. He always said the ocean had its rules, and respecting them was the difference between coming home or feeding the fish. Father Tomas was our spiritual guide, a thin man with sunken eyes who saw sin in every wave, in every contrary wind. He was 50 years old and had spent most of them in monasteries before agreeing to come with us. He said God had called him to take the word to the ends of the earth. Now I know that perhaps it was another kind of call that brought him here. Diego Palomero, our pilot and navigator, was the opposite of the priest. Calm, rational, always with his eyes on the stars and the nautical charts. A Portuguese man of 38 who knew the winds as if they were old friends. It was he who charted our courses, who guided us through the unknown waters. Mateo Ruiz, the boatswain, was the natural leader among the sailors. Tall, strong, with a scar running across his left eyebrow. He was 32 and had the respect of all the men aboard. He always distrusted me, the pretentious clerk who had never dirtied his hands with real work, and he was right to be suspicious. Among the sailors, there was Inigo Sanchez, a 40-year-old veteran who knew every rope, every sail of the caravel. Fernando Costa, a cabin boy of only 16, superstitious like all young men of the sea. Garcia Lopez, a giant of a man who protected the weaker ones as easily as he hoisted sails alone. Pedro Vargas was our cook, a simple, devout man who prayed over every pot. Juan Herrera, the ship's carpenter, pragmatic and always with his hands busy fixing something. Miguel Torres, a 50-year-old veteran sailor who no longer believed in anything he couldn't touch. Antonio Ribeiro was the only other Portuguese besides Diego, always a little marginalized by the Spanish crew. Luis Moreno, young and impulsive, was the first to raise his voice in any argument. Vicente Suarez was our lookout, with eagle eyes that could spot land before anyone else. And Rafael Campos, a common sailor who followed Mateo like a shadow. 15 men, 15 souls sailing back to Spain after months of exploration to the south. 15 lives that the black fog would turn into fuel for its horror. It all started 11 days ago, when the waters were still calm and the sky still had color. We were sailing in known waters, following the coast at a safe distance. The wind was favorable, the sails were full, and the men worked with the efficiency of those who know every movement by heart. I spent the days recording our position, noting the supplies, doing the tedious work of a clerk that kept me away from the heavy labor. It was Vicente who saw it first, from the top of the observation mast. His voice cut across the deck like a seagull's cry. "Land ahead." "No, wait. It's not land." Captain Mendoza climbed to the main deck, shielding his eyes from the setting sun with his hand. I was nearby, organizing the day's records, and approached to look. On the horizon, where the sky met the sea, there was a strange glow. It was not the normal reflection of the sun on the water. It was something deeper, more intense, as if the very line of the horizon were burning with a cold, bluish light. "What the devil is that?" muttered Mateo, who had approached the captain. Diego Palomero already had his astrolabe in his hands, calculating our position. His furrowed brow said something was not right. "There shouldn't be anything there, Captain," he said quietly. "These waters are known. There are no islands, no sandbanks, nothing that could cause that glow." Father Tomas had also climbed up, drawn by the commotion. He looked at the horizon, and his face paled. "It is a sign," he whispered, making the sign of the cross. "God is warning us." "Nonsense," the captain replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "It's just some natural phenomenon.
Reflection of crystals on the water perhaps, or he didn't finish the sentence, because at that moment, as the sun finally dipped below the horizon, the glow changed. The bluish light darkened, becoming gray first, then black, and it began to move. It was not an island. It was not a reflection. It was a fog, a wall of black fog, darker than the night itself, advancing towards us like a living creature. I could see its contours rippling, twisting, as if it were breathing. "Turn to starboard," the captain shouted. "All sails! Get us away from that thing!" The men rushed to their posts. Ropes were pulled, sails adjusted. The Santa Estella began to turn, slowly but obediently. The timbers groaned with the effort, but the fog was faster. In minutes, it had reached us. Not completely. It stayed a distance of perhaps 100 meters from our stern, like a predator observing its prey, moving at the same speed as us, no matter how much wind the sails caught. I watched that black wall with a growing fear in my chest. There was something profoundly wrong with it. It wasn't just its color, or the way it moved. It was the sensation it emanated, a presence, a consciousness. "It's following us," said Fernando, the young cabin boy, his voice trembling. "Don't be an idiot," retorted Miguel, the skeptical veteran. "It's just fog. Fog doesn't follow anyone, but we could all see it. When the caravel turned, the fog turned too. When we sped up, it sped up, always maintaining that precise distance, as if studying us. That first night, no one slept properly. We kept lanterns lit all along the ship, as if the light could protect us. The captain set extra watches, 3 men always observing the fog, ready to alert of any change. I stayed on the deck late, unable to go down to my small cabin. There was something hypnotic about that black wall. Sometimes I seemed to see shapes inside it, figures that moved, like people walking through the darkness. But when I blinked, the shapes disappeared. It must have been almost midnight when I heard it for the first time. A whisper, so low that I thought I had imagined it, coming from the direction of the fog, carried by the wind. One word, a name, my name, Alonso. I froze. I looked around, but the other men on the deck did not seem to have heard anything. Vicente was at the observation mast. Garcia and Rafael were checking the ropes. No one was looking in my direction. Alonso, mi hijo, my son, in Spanish, in the voice of my father who had died 3 years ago of fever in Seville. My father whom I had not seen in his last days because I was busy with my studies, with my career. My father whose last words to me had been of disappointment. "No," I whispered to myself, "it's not real." But the voice came again, clearer now, as if my father were right there, on the other side of the railing, hidden by the darkness. "Why didn't you come, Alonso? Why did you leave me to die alone?" My hands gripped the wooden railing. I knew it wasn't real. It couldn't be. But the voice was perfect. Every inflection, every pause, exactly as I remembered. "Alonso?" I almost jumped in surprise. It was Garcia, the strong sailor, looking at me with concern. "Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." I swallowed hard. "Didn't you hear anything? Coming from the fog?" Garcia looked back at the black wall that was following us. I heard. We all heard. I felt a brief relief, quickly replaced by more fear. "So I'm not crazy. There's something in there. Something that..." "No," Garcia interrupted me, his voice low. "You don't understand. We all heard, but each one hears something different." He looked around, making sure no one else was close enough to listen. Fernando heard his brother, the brother who drowned 2 years ago. Pedro heard his wife, who died in childbirth. Vicente heard his mother. But how? I don't know. Garcia rubbed his face with his hands. But everyone is hearing their dead, and they are all saying the same thing. "What?" Garcia looked at me and I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Fear from a man I had never imagined capable of feeling fear. "Uno siempre queda," he whispered. "One always remains. That's what the dead are saying, that only one of us will survive." The next morning, the captain gathered everyone on deck. The sun was high, but its light seemed weak, filtered by a finer mist that still hovered around us. The black wall continued behind us, immutable, relentless. The men were pale, with sunken eyes. No one had slept properly. "Listen," Captain Mendoza began, his voice firm despite the visible tension in his jaw. "I know the night was difficult. I know everyone heard things, saw things. There were murmurs among the men. Father Tomas stepped forward.
They are not just visions, Captain. It is a trial. God is testing our faith, with all respect, Father, I don't care what it is. The captain cut him off. I care about how we are going to deal with it, and we will deal with it the same way we deal with any storm, by maintaining discipline, staying the course, and not allowing panic to dominate us. Matteo, the boatswain, crossed his arms. And what is the course, Captain? That thing follows us no matter where we go. Then we will go where it cannot follow us. Mendoza pointed east. There is an island 2 days' sail away. Small, but with fresh water and a beach. We can anchor in shallow water. If this fog is natural, it won't be able to reach us there. Diego Palomero nodded, already calculating the new route. I can get us there, Captain. The currents are favorable. Then do it. Mendoza looked at each of us. And no one stays alone. Always in pairs, always in sight of others. Whatever this fog is, we will not let it divide us. Understood? A chorus of "Yes, sir" went across the deck, but I saw the doubt in their eyes. The same doubt I felt in my own heart. Because my father's voice had said something else, something Garcia hadn't mentioned, something that haunted me as the sun rose in the sky. Someone always remains, Alonso. Always. And it will be the one who chooses to survive. It was on the second night that things got worse. The captain had decided to investigate. We couldn't just keep fleeing without understanding what we were facing. We needed information, some way to fight it. The plan was simple. A skiff, our small reconnaissance boat, would approach the fog, but not enter it. It would only observe closely, try to see if there was something inside, some natural explanation. 4 men were chosen. Inigo Sanchez, the veteran sailor who knew the sea better than anyone. Antonio Ribeiro, strong enough to row against any current. Luis Moreno, young but brave. And Juan Herrera, our carpenter, in case the boat suffered any damage. I watched from the deck as they descended. The fog was closer now, not because it had advanced, but because we had stopped. We maintained position, sails lowered, just enough not to drift. "Stay close," the captain shouted as the skiff moved away. At the first sign of danger, return immediately. The 4 men rowed in sync, their movements precise on the calm water. The light from the lanterns they carried created a small circle of brightness around the boat. 50 meters, 40, 30. We could see the black fog wall rising before them like a solid cliff, but it wasn't solid. I could see its surface rippling, moving like breathing. 20 meters. Inigo raised his hand, signaling them to stop. The boat stopped, rocking gently. The 4 men stared fixedly at the fog, their lanterns raised. Then Inigo stood up, slowly, as if in a trance. "Inigo!" the captain shouted. "Sit down!" But Inigo didn't respond. He took a step towards the bow of the boat, his eyes fixed on something inside the fog that we couldn't see. Antonio tried to pull him back. I saw his arm extend, grabbing Inigo's shoulder. But Inigo broke free with a strength that didn't seem natural and jumped. He didn't jump into the water. He jumped in the direction of the fog, and the fog grabbed him. Arms. I don't know how else to describe it. They were arms, or things that looked like arms, stretching out from the black wall. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, pale, with wrong joints, fingers too long, all reaching, all grabbing Inigo in the air. He didn't scream. He just disappeared into the darkness, pulled by those impossible things. "Row!" the captain bellowed. "Come back now!" Antonio, Luis, and Juan didn't need to be told twice. The oars hit the water with desperation, the boat spinning and accelerating back towards the Santa Estela. But the fog advanced. For the first time since it found us, it broke its careful distance. It advanced like a wave, fast, hungry. The pale arms stretched out from its surface, reaching for the skiff. "Faster!" someone shouted from the deck. I don't know who. Maybe myself. The boat was only 10 meters from the caravel when the arms reached it. One of them grabbed Juan, wrapping around his waist. He screamed, clung to the boat's bench, but was ripped out as if he weighed nothing. Another arm grabbed Luis, then another, and another. Antonio was rowing alone now, tears streaming down his face, screams tearing through his throat. The fog was practically on top of him, the arms multiplying, a forest of pale, hungry limbs. Garcia and Rafael threw ropes from the deck. One of them hit Antonio, who grabbed it with one hand while rowing desperately with the other. "Pull!" Matteo ordered. 6 men pulled the rope. The skiff was torn from the water, rising along the hull of the Santa Estela. Antonio climbed with it, hanging from the rope, still screaming. The fog stopped 5 meters from the hull. The arms slowly retracted, like snakes returning to their dens. And then, as quickly as it had advanced, the fog retreated to its original distance, 100 meters, no closer, no further, as if nothing had happened. Antonio was on the deck, trembling uncontrollably. Father Tomas knelt beside him, murmuring prayers. Pedro brought water. The captain looked at the fog, his jaw tight. 3 men, he said, his voice low. 3 men in seconds. 4, Vicente corrected from the observation mast. His voice was strange. Sir, you need to see this. We all looked where he was pointing. On the edge of the black fog, there was a figure, standing, motionless, arms at its side. It was Inigo. Even from a distance, even in the darkness, I could see his eyes, open, fixed on us. Inigo, someone shouted. Fernando, I think. The figure did not respond, did not move, because Inigo was dead. I could see it now, as my eyes adjusted. He was not standing of his own volition. He was being supported. Dozens of those pale arms held him up, keeping him erect, keeping him facing us, like a warning, like a trophy, like a promise. Mother of God, whispered Father Tomas. And then everyone heard it, not through the wind this time, not as distant whispers. The voice came from everywhere at once, from within the fog, from within the water, from within our own heads. It was Inigo's voice, but wrong, distorted, as if coming from a corpse with lungs full of water. She is choosing. The figure in the fog fell. The arms released it and it sank into the darkness, disappearing as if it had never existed, and the fog began to whisper. Not one voice now. Hundreds, thousands, all speaking at once, all calling our names, all repeating the same message. Uno siempre queda, uno siempre queda, uno siempre queda. One always remains. That night, no one slept. We didn't even try. The captain ordered all lanterns to be lit. The Santa Estela shone in the darkness like a fallen star, surrounded by the black fog that pulsed and breathed around us, because it was no longer just behind us. It was everywhere. It did not touch the ship. It maintained those 5 meters of distance, as if there was an invisible barrier it could not cross. But it surrounded us completely now, a circular wall of darkness, and us trapped in the center. I was on the main deck with the others, no one wanting to be alone, when I heard it again, my father's voice. Alonso, mi hijo, come speak with me. I looked at the fog, and I saw him. My father was there, on the edge of the darkness, not as I remembered him in his last days, weak, consumed by fever, but as he was when I was a child, strong, smiling, holding out his hand to me. I have so much to tell you, son, so much you need to know, about what is coming, about who will survive. I took a step towards the railing, another, my hand stretched out. Alonso! Garcia pulled me back, knocking me onto the deck. The pain exploded through my skull as my head hit the wood. What the devil are you doing? He bellowed. You were about to jump. I swallowed hard, my heart racing. My father, he was nothing. Garcia shook me. It was the fog, just the fog. But when I looked back, my father was still there, watching, and his smile had changed. It was no longer loving. It was hungry. You were always weak, Alonso, but weakness has its purpose. The weak survive because they do what the strong cannot. Do you understand? Stop listening. Garcia shook me again. Cover your ears, pray, do anything but stop listening. I buried my face in my hands, trying to block that voice. But it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside my own head. Someone always remains, son, and it will be you. Around me, I could hear the other men. Some were crying. Some were screaming back at the fog. Fernando was huddled in a corner, covering his ears and humming a lullaby. Pedro was praying so loudly that his voice cracked. Father Tomas was in the center of the deck, a cross raised above his head, shouting verses. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. But his voice trembled, and his eyes were fixed on the fog, where a figure dressed in black robes watched him back. Father, I whispered. Who is my predecessor? He replied, his voice broken. The man who taught me, who died forgiving me for a sin that I never confessed to anyone else. The figure in the fog beckoned, inviting. Father Tomas lowered the cross. No. The captain was suddenly beside him, holding his arm. Don't go.
It's not real. None of this is real. But what if it is? Tomas looked at him with wild eyes. What if it's a chance for redemption? To finally be free? The only thing you will find there is death. Mendoza squeezed his arm. And we are not losing anyone else. Understood? The priest nodded slowly, but I saw the doubt on his face, the temptation, and I realized then what the fog was doing. It wasn't just scaring us, it was studying us, learning, finding our weaknesses, our guilt, our deepest fears, and using them against us. Clever boy, my father's voice whispered, now carrying something that was definitely not human. So intelligent. That's why you will survive, because you understand. The others don't understand yet, but they will. Oh, how they will understand. The fog pulsed like a heartbeat, and for a moment through its black surface, I thought I saw something deeper, something vast, something ancient, something that was hungry. The dawn brought brief relief. The fog retreated with the sunlight, not disappearing completely, but becoming thinner, less oppressive. I could see through it now, see the sea beyond, see that a world still existed outside our circle of terror. But the relief was only an illusion. We all knew the fog would return when night fell, and we were right. 12 men now. We had started with 15, 3 lost in a single night. The captain gathered us again. His eyes were red with exhaustion, but his voice still held command. "We cannot continue like this," he said. "If we have more nights like this, there will be no one left by the time we reach the island." "Then what do you suggest, sir?" Mateo asked. The boatswain seemed to have aged 10 years in 2 nights. "We sail day and night," Mendoza replied. "We don't stop anymore. We don't rest anymore. We push the Santa Estela to its limit and reach the island before this thing consumes us completely." Diego Palomero shook his head. "The men will collapse from exhaustion, Captain. And exhausted, they will be even more vulnerable. Then we sleep in shifts, always some awake, always watching. No one alone, not for a second." "And what if the fog attacks during the day?" asked Fernando, his voice thin with fear. The captain had no answer for that, because we could all feel it. The fog was changing, becoming bolder, stronger, learning. It was when Vicente screamed from the observation mast, "Captain, to the south! Look to the south!" We all turned. The fog to the south was moving, not retreating, advancing, but not towards us. It was rising. Like a gigantic wave, the black wall climbed, higher and higher, blocking the sky. 3 meters, 5, 10, 20. And then, on the face of that impossible wave, the shapes began to appear. Faces, hundreds of them, thousands, pressed against the surface of the fog as if trapped behind glass, mouths open in silent screams, eyes wide with terror. "It's them," whispered Antonio, still traumatized from the night before. "Inigo, Luis, Juan, they are all there." And he was right. I could see Inigo, his face distorted in agony. Juan beside him, hands scratching the surface. Luis further back, eyes already empty. But it wasn't just them. There were others. Dozens of others. People I had never seen before. Men in old clothes. Women. Children. All trapped in the fog. All dead. All watching. "How many?" whispered Father Tomas. "How many ships? How many souls?" The wave of fog fell. Not gradually, all at once. Like 1,000 tons of black water plunging down on us. We all screamed, threw ourselves onto the deck, covered our heads. But it didn't hit us. It stopped 5 meters above the highest mast, forming a ceiling, a dome. We were in a prison now. Walls of fog around, ceiling of fog above, only the sea below. And how long until it took that too? The sunlight disappeared. It was not night. It was something worse. An artificial darkness, created by that impossible dome. Our lanterns seemed insignificant against it. "Hoist all sails," the captain ordered, his voice cracked but firm. "We will not die standing like rats in a trap. Move!" The men obeyed out of pure instinct. Ropes were pulled. Sails were hoisted. The Santa Estela began to move, cutting through the water towards nowhere, because there was no horizon anymore. There were no stars to guide, just darkness all around us. Diego Palomero was at the helm, but his hands were trembling. "Captain, I have no way to navigate like this. I can't see the stars. I can't see the sun. We are blind." "Then sail by instinct," Mendoza growled.
in any direction. Anything is better than standing still, waiting. But I knew the truth. We all knew. It didn't matter where we sailed. The fog would take us where it wanted, and it wanted only one thing. Uno siempre queda. 3 days. 3 days sailing inside that dome of darkness. 3 days without seeing the sun, without seeing stars, without knowing if it was day or night, except for our increasingly confused internal clocks. 3 days while the fog slowly consumed us. Not all at once. It was patient, intelligent. It knew it could break us without touching us. On the first night inside the dome, if it was night we were never sure, Diego Palomero disappeared. We were all on deck. No one wanted to go below. Below deck felt even worse, more claustrophobic, more vulnerable. So we stayed in a group, huddling near the lanterns, trying to give ourselves courage with our proximity. Diego was at the helm, as always. Mateo was beside him. I saw them clearly. We were less than 10 meters away. I blinked. When I opened my eyes, Diego was gone. "Diego!" Mateo shouted, looking around frantically. "Where are you?" But there was no answer. Just the empty space where Diego had been a second ago. We searched for hours. Every inch of the Santa Estela, every corner, every compartment, every barrel large enough to hide a man. Nothing. Diego Palomero had simply ceased to exist. The fog took him, whispered Fernando, his eyes wide with terror. He was right here and it just... "Silence!" the captain bellowed. "He has to be somewhere. People don't disappear, but they do disappear." We had seen it, and now we all knew. The fog didn't need to drag us screaming. It could take us whenever it wanted. A blink of an eye and you were somewhere else. On the second night, or was it the third, the voices got worse. They were no longer just distant whispers. Now they were full conversations, arguments, pleas. Each of us heard something different, but everyone heard. Mateo heard his mother saying he had always been her favorite son, that he deserved to live more than the others, that it wasn't selfishness, it was destiny. Fernando heard his dead brother explaining that the fog was not hunting everyone. It was looking for someone specific, someone special, someone worthy. Garcia heard his wife begging him to return, saying the children needed him, that doing whatever was necessary to survive was not a sin, it was an obligation. Pedro heard angelic voices promising salvation, but only for one, only for the chosen one. And I heard my father, every night, every hour. His voice never stopped. "You know what you have to do, Alonso. You always have. It's who you are, the survivor, the coward, the one who does what needs to be done." "Shut up," I whispered, gripping my temples. "Shut up, shut up, shut up. They will die anyway, all of them. The fog will take them one by one, unless someone acts first. Someone takes control. I won't listen. You are not real, but I am. As real as this fog, as real as the fear in your heart, and you know I'm right. You always have." I began to notice that I wasn't the only one having these conversations. I saw the others looking at the fog, moving their lips, responding to voices only they heard, each one being fed their own version of the truth, each one being convinced that they were special, that they were the chosen one, that they had the right, no, the obligation, to survive. It was on the third night that the fog showed us. We were gathered on deck when the images began. Projections on the fog's surface, like shadows on a wall, but perfectly clear. We saw ourselves, not as we were now, but as we would be. Mateo, strangling Fernando with a rope, the cabin boy's eyes bulging, tongue lolling, while Mateo whispered apologies. Garcia, pushing Pedro overboard. The cook screaming as he fell into the dark water, where pale hands awaited him. Father Tomas, slitting Vicente's throat with a kitchen knife, praying as the blood gushed. And I saw myself locking the hatch to the hold. I heard muffled screams from the other side. I saw my hands, my own hands, driving an iron bar through the hull, letting the water in. I saw myself lowering a boat, rowing away as the Santa Estela sank behind me. "No!" I shouted, turning my face away. "That's not real. I would never do that." But the image remained, and I realized something worse. We were all seeing our own versions, each one seeing himself as the last man alive, each one seeing how we would get there. The fog wasn't just terrifying us, it was teaching us, showing the way. "Do you see?" Father Tomas whispered, his eyes glazed. "It is showing us the future. We cannot escape. It is written. Nothing is written, the captain roared. They are tricks, lies. It is trying to make us turn against each other. But what if it's true? Raphael spoke for the first time in days. What if only one of us can survive? What if it's a choice we'll have to make? Then we don't choose. Mendoza looked at each of us. Do you hear? We die together or we live together, but we do not kill each other. That is exactly what this thing wants. But I saw the doubt in their eyes, in everyone's gaze, because the fog had planted the idea, and once planted it was impossible to uproot. Uno siempre queda. One always remains. And each of us was beginning to wonder, why not me? It was on the morning of the fourth day, or perhaps it was night, it no longer mattered, that we lost Pedro. The cook was preparing the meal on deck. He insisted on maintaining the routine, saying it was important to continue acting like civilized people. No one had an appetite, but he cooked anyway. He was stirring a pot when he started to laugh. It was not a normal laugh. It was high-pitched, hysterical, broken. Pedro, Garcia approached cautiously. Are you all right? Pedro turned around. Tears streamed down his face, but he was still laughing. She told me, he said between laughs and sobs. She told me everything, about my wife, about the baby, the truth. What truth? That it wasn't my fault. Pedro laughed louder. That I wasn't punished. That I can go to them now. No. Garcia stepped forward. Pedro, listen. It's not real. Whatever she told you. It is real, Pedro bellowed. It is more real than anything in this miserable life. And they are waiting. I can see them. There. He pointed to the fog. And I saw it too. Two figures. A young woman holding a baby, both smiling, waving. Maria! Pedro shouted. Wait! I'm coming! He ran to the railing. Garcia jumped, trying to grab him. His fingers brushed Pedro's shirt but failed to hold on. Pedro jumped, not into the water, towards the fog. It grabbed him in the air, those pale arms extending, wrapping, pulling. We heard his scream, first of joy, then of confusion, finally of absolute horror, as he was dragged into the darkness. Then silence. Garcia was at the railing, panting, looking where Pedro had disappeared. I almost got him. You couldn't save him. Mateo placed his hand on his shoulder. He was already lost. 11 now. We had started with 15, 4 days and 4 dead, and I was doing the math. 10 more nights, perhaps 2 weeks, until only one remained. Unless something changed, unless someone did something. You're starting to understand, my father whispered, aren't you? That night, and now I knew it was night because our exhausted bodies could no longer deny sleep. The first real fight broke out. Luis and Antonio started it. About what? I no longer remember. Perhaps nothing. Perhaps the tension had simply become unbearable. It began with pushes, accusations. Luis shouting that Antonio had drunk too much water. Antonio replying that Luis was listening to the voices, that he was being manipulated. Then fists flew. Mateo tried to separate them, ended up taking a punch to the eye from Luis, retaliated by instinct, knocking the young sailor onto the deck. Garcia jumped in to defend Luis. Raphael jumped in to defend Mateo. In seconds, half the crew was fighting. Stop! The captain bellowed. Stop now! No one stopped, because it wasn't just anger. It was weeks of fear, of exhaustion, of hearing voices that promised salvation only for one. It was the fog working on us, amplifying every small resentment, every fear, every selfish survival instinct. It was Vicente who screamed, from the observation mast, where he still kept watch, even though there was nothing to see. The fog! It's moving! Everyone stopped. We looked. The wall to the north was advancing, not fast, but consistent. 1 meter, 2, 3, breaking that sacred 5-meter distance it had always maintained. It's coming! Fernando yelled. It's coming to get us! Calm down! The captain tried to maintain control. Everyone retreat to the opposite side. Diego, turn the... He stopped. Damn it, Diego is dead. Mateo, to the helm. Get us out of here. But as the north wall advanced, the south wall advanced too, east and west moving, the dome above descending. The prison was getting smaller. There's nowhere to go, Antonio shouted. We are trapped. The fog was 3 meters away now. 2. I could see the faces inside it. Hundreds of them. Inigo, Diego, Luis, Juan, Pedro, all watching, all waiting for more company. 1 meter. The creatures began to emerge. Those pale arms, Those impossible bodies, half inside and half out of the fog, reaching, always reaching, half a meter. "Holy Mary!" Father Tomas was screaming, his cross raised, as he retreated to the center of the deck. "Protect us!" And then, half a meter from the Santa Estela, the fog stopped. It simply stopped. The creatures froze, arms still extended, the faces still watched, but motionless now. The silence was worse than the screams had been. "Why did it stop?" whispered Fernando. No one had an answer, until we heard it. A voice, not whispered this time, not distorted, clear, loud, coming from everywhere at once. It was Inigo's voice, but not just his. It was Diego's too, and Pedro's, and Luis's, and Juan's, all the voices of the dead speaking in unison. "Uno vive, los demás serven." One lives, the others serve. Ella espera, ella siempre espera, porque uno siempre elige. She waits, she always waits, because one always chooses. El traidor, el cobarde, el superviviente, the traitor, the coward, the survivor. The fog retreated, back to 5 meters, 10, 20. The dome above began to rise, letting through some of the gray light of what might have been dawn. And then we understood. The fog could take us whenever it wanted. It could crush us, drown us in darkness and pale arms in seconds. But it didn't want to. It wanted one of us to choose. It wanted one of us to betray the others. It wanted us to do the dirty work for it. And only then, when we had proven ourselves worthy of its choice, worthy of being the sole survivor, would it let us go. "Mother of God," I whispered, "it's not hunting us." "Then what is it doing?" Garcia asked, his voice broken. I looked at him, at Mateo, at the captain, at all 11 remaining men. "It's testing us." The following days, if they were days, we were never sure, turned into a nightmare of increasing paranoia and distrust. The fog had changed its tactic. It no longer pressured us. It just watched, waited, because now it knew it didn't need to do anything. We would do it for it. It started small, suspicious glances, conversations interrupted when someone approached, men checking where the others were all the time, not out of concern, but out of fear. Fernando started sleeping with a knife under his pillow. Garcia tied a rope around his waist, the other end attached to the mast, so no one could drag him away during the night. Vicente refused any food he didn't prepare himself. And the voices never stopped. Each of us received our own version of the truth, our own justification, our own permission to do the unthinkable. For me, it was always my father. "Look at them, Alonso. Really look." And I looked. I saw Mateo sharpening a knife, his eyes distant. I saw Rafael and Antonio talking in dark corners. I saw the captain himself looking at the crew with something new in his eyes. Calculation. Everyone is thinking the same thing. Everyone is wondering who will be the chosen one. And more importantly, who needs to die first. They wouldn't do that, I whispered. "We are civilized men." You were. But civilization is thin, son. As thin as the fabric separating you from this fog, and it's already tearing. I wanted to argue. I wanted to believe that we were above this. But then I saw it. Fernando and Luis talking. Fernando pointing at me, saying something I couldn't hear. Luis nodding. They were talking about me, planning something. Or was it paranoia? The fog planting suspicions. There was no way to know. And that was the torture. Never knowing what was real and what was the fog manipulating our minds. It was on the 6th night, or was it the 7th, that we found Vicente. He was at the observation mast, as always. His post, his duty. But when Mateo climbed up to relieve him on his shift, he found only the body. Vicente was hanging from the ropes, neck broken, eyes open, looking at nothing. "It was murder!" Mateo bellowed from above. "Someone killed him." We brought the body down, examined it. Father Tomas tried to determine the cause of death, but without success. "He could have fallen," the captain suggested, but his voice lacked conviction. "Lost his balance, got tangled in the ropes. Or someone pushed him." Mateo interrupted him. "Someone climbed up there and killed him while we were all down here." "Who?" "Any of us." We looked at each other. 10 men now. Each one a potential killer. Each one a potential victim. "We need to stick together." The captain tried to establish order. "No one leaves the sight of the others. No one—" "How is that going to work, Captain?" Rafael interrupted him. "Are we going to watch each other until we die of exhaustion? And who watches the watchers?"
Then what do you suggest? I suggest, Raphael pointed to the fog, that we stop pretending. It said clearly, one lives, the others serve. So let's decide. Now, who is the chosen one? Dead silence. You are crazy, Garcia finally said. Are you suggesting we choose who lives and who dies? I'm suggesting the choice is already being made. Raphael gestured to Vicente's body. It's just happening in secret, in the dark, with knives in the back. At least if we decide together. No! The captain pounded his fist on the railing. We are not going to become murderers. We are not going to give this thing what it wants. It already has what it wants. Raphael yelled back. We are all dead. The only question is whether we accept our fate, or at least try. Try what? Kill each other until one remains? Yes! Raphael's scream echoed in the silence that followed. He looked around at our shocked faces, and something in him broke. Don't you understand? His voice became lower, almost pleading. I have 3 children. 3. The youngest is 5 years old. If I die here, who will take care of them? The woman can't work. She's sick. They will. They will. Tears were streaming down his face now. I deserve to live. I need to live. More than anyone here. Oh yeah? Matteo stepped forward. What about my mother? She's old. Alone. I'm all she has. So why do you deserve more than me? Because I have small children. And I have a dependent mother. Enough! The captain roared. We all have people waiting. We all have reasons to live. That doesn't give us the right to. It was then that the second body was found. Antonio. In the hold. Throat slit, and the knife used was in Fernando's hand. The cabin boy was huddled in the corner, covered in blood, eyes glazed, mumbling to himself. He was going to kill me, Fernando whispered. I heard him talking, him and Luis, planning. He was going to kill me so I... Lie! Luis bellowed. We never planned anything. You murdered Antonio in cold blood. No! The fog showed me. It told me he was going to, that everyone was going to. Fernando looked around with wild eyes. You all want to kill me. I can see it. I can hear what you're thinking. He pointed the bloody knife at us. But I will survive. I am the chosen one. The fog told me. Fernando. The captain advanced slowly, hands raised. Put down the knife. We can talk about this. No, I won't. You will kill me like I killed Antonio. No one is going to kill anyone. Fernando attacked, not the captain. Luis, the closest to him. The blade entered the young sailor's stomach before anyone could react. Luis staggered back, hands pressing the wound, blood seeping between his fingers. You... He fell. Garcia roared, grabbed an iron bar, and struck Fernando on the head. The cabin boy collapsed, motionless. We ran to Luis. Father Tomas tried to staunch the bleeding, but there was too much blood. Luis looked at me. Our eyes met. He tried to speak, but only blood came out of his mouth. Then he died. And Fernando, when we checked, Fernando was also dead. Garcia's blow had cracked his skull. 7 now. 7 out of 15. More than half dead in less than a week. And the worst part, it wasn't the fog that killed them. It was us. That night, the fog showed us something new. No images this time. No future projections. It showed us the truth about itself. The dome above lit up, as if stars had appeared within the darkness itself. But they weren't stars. They were eyes. Thousands of them. Millions. Watching from within the fog, all focused on us. And through that impossible illumination, we saw inside it. The fog was not just fog. It was a living thing. A being. Ancient beyond comprehension. Vast beyond imagination. We saw its contours. Tentacles that stretched for miles. Bodies stuck in its substance like insects in amber. Entire ships suspended within it. Crews frozen in their last moments of horror. How many? How many ships had it taken over the centuries? How many souls had it collected? And finally, we understood. The fog did not kill. Not directly. It collected. It collected those who died. Their souls, their essences, their terrors. It added them to its collection. Used them to torture the next ones. All the voices we heard of our fathers, our mothers, our loved ones were real. They were the souls the fog had taken from other ships, other crews, over countless years. And the survivor, the only one who escaped. He is the bait, my father's voice explained. But now I could hear the difference. It wasn't really my father. It was the fog, using his memory. We always let one live, one to tell the story.
One, to spread the fear, so that other ships come to investigate, so that more souls enter our net. So we were never hunted, I whispered. We were always created. Yes, and now you will understand the last part, the most delicious part. The fog pulsed. Only the traitor survives. Only the one weak enough to sacrifice the others, because those are the best. They spread the best fear. They live tormented. They die slowly inside. And when they finally die, from guilt, from suicide, from madness, their souls come to us anyway, no matter where they are. They are marked. They were always ours. I looked around at the other 6 men. Everyone had heard. Everyone had understood. There was no real escape. Alive or dead, the fog would take us. Unless no one betrayed. Unless everyone died together on their own terms, denying the fog its marked survivor. I saw the same realization in the captain's eyes. Then we have a choice, he said slowly. We can kill each other until one remains, who will live tormented and eventually join this thing anyway. Or, Matteo asked, or we die together. Now, sink the ship, drown together, deny it what it wants. Silence. Then Raphael laughed. A bitter, broken laugh. Do you really think we have that strength, that nobility? After everything we've seen? After Antonio, Fernando, Luis? We have to try. The captain insisted. It's the only way to win. I don't want to win, Raphael replied. I want to live. I want to see my children again. And if the price is... He looked at us, and I saw the decision in his eyes. No. Garcia stepped back. Raphael, don't... Raphael pulled out a knife. I'm sorry. It was then that everything collapsed. Matteo jumped at Raphael. Juan pulled his own knife. Garcia grabbed the iron bar. The captain shouted for us to stop. Father Tomas began to pray, his voice rising above the chaos. And I retreated, step by step, moving away from the fight, moving away from the screams, moving away from the violence that exploded like a tumor finally ruptured, because I realized something. While they fought, I could escape, not from the fog. That was impossible. But I could be the last one alive. I could be the chosen one. And God forgive me, but a part of me wanted that. Finally, my father whispered. Finally, you accept. Act 3. Climax and resolution. The deck was painted red. I don't know how long the fight lasted. Minutes? Hours? Time had lost meaning. There was only the sound of flesh hitting flesh, of metal cutting flesh, of men dying. When it finally stopped, when the last scream silenced, I looked. 5 bodies on the deck. Raphael, throat slit. Juan, skull cracked. Garcia, stabbed repeatedly in the chest. Matteo, fallen over Garcia, a knife still stuck in his back. And Father Tomas, prostrate beside them all, a bloody iron bar inches from his outstretched hand. The priest had fought, even him. In the end, even the man of God had fought to survive. Only 2 remained, I and Captain Rodrigo de Mendoza. He was on the other side of the deck, leaning against the railing, one hand pressing a deep wound on his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. His other hand held a stained sword. We looked at each other across the slaughterhouse our ship had become. Alonso, he said, his voice hoarse, it doesn't have to be like this. My hand gripped the knife I had picked up. I don't even know when I took it. It was simply there, in my hand, wet with the blood of whom? Garcia? Raphael? I didn't remember stabbing anyone, but I must have stabbed someone. Otherwise, why was the knife in my hand? Because you are the survivor, my father whispered. Because in the end, when everything falls apart, you do what needs to be done. We can end this, the captain continued, taking a staggering step forward. Together, sink the ship, die like men, not like this. He gestured to the bodies. She wins if we kill ourselves, I said. My voice sounded strange, distant, as if coming from someone else. She wins if one of us betrays the other. So there is no victory. There is no way out of this. There is... Mendoza dropped the sword. The metal clanged on the deck. We choose to die together. We choose to deny her her bait, her marked survivor. It is the only way to what? I laughed, and the sound was bitter. To win? Captain, look around. We have already lost. We lost the moment this fog found us. Perhaps even before that. Perhaps from the moment we were born with this weakness inside us. What weakness? The will to live, I whispered, at any cost. The captain shook his head, tears glistening in his eyes. No, Alonso.
That is not weakness. It is human. What is weakness is giving up, is accepting what this thing wants us to be. He held out his hand. Come, help me breach the hull. We can do it in minutes. The Santa Estela sinks. We sink with it, and this damned creature gains nothing. I looked at his outstretched hand. I looked at the fog all around, watching, waiting. I looked at the bodies of men who had been my companions, and I made my decision. I'm sorry, Captain. I didn't see the expression on his face as I moved. I didn't want to see it. I just moved, fast, the knife going up, entering just below the ribs, pushing up, piercing the heart. Mendoza gasped. His hands grabbed my shoulders, not in attack, but just gripping, as if he was trying to stay standing, as if he was trying to understand. Why? He whispered. Because I am 23 years old, I whispered back, tears running down my face. And you are 46. Because I have a whole life ahead of me. Because I am young and you are old, and if anyone deserves to live, but they were lies. All lies. The truth was simple. I was a coward. Always have been. And cowards survive because they do what heroes cannot. The captain fell, collapsed in my arms, and I lowered him gently to the deck. His eyes met mine one last time. There was no anger in them, only sadness. She, already, won, he whispered. The moment she chose you, then he died, and I was alone. 15 men had boarded the Santa Estela. Now only one remained. The fog retreated. It did not disappear, but it gave space, as if satisfied, as if it finally had what it wanted. Well done, son. My father. No, the fog, using his voice, whispered. Now just one last thing. What? I asked, looking around at that darkness. What else do you want from me? Ensure your survival. The dead can serve as proof, but you need a story that explains why only you lived. I understood then. It wasn't enough to survive. I needed to cover up what I had done. I needed a narrative that absolved me, a shipwreck, a storm, something natural. But there were all these bodies, evidence of violence, of murder, unless the bodies disappeared, unless they sank with the ship. Yes, the fog whispered. Now you fully understand. I worked for hours. First, I dragged the bodies to the hold. Each one, 12 dead men, heavy with the weight of death. My hands slipped on the blood. My muscles screamed, but I continued. When everyone was in the hold, I closed the hatch, locked it, passed a heavy chain through the mechanism and tied it off. Then I took the iron bar, the same one Garcia had used to kill Fernando, and started working on the hull. The timber was old but strong. It took time. Every blow echoed through the empty ship. Every blow was a condemnation. Finally, the wood gave way. Water began to gush in, not fast, but steady, relentless. The Santa Estela began to sink. I climbed back to the deck. I went to the lifeboat we had kept for emergencies. The same one Antonio, Luis, and Juan had used. The same one Inigo had jumped from to his death. I prepared it methodically. Oars, water, a little leftover food. The diary. I needed the diary, my alibi, my story. I was about to lower the boat when I heard it. Banging, coming from below, from the hold. Faint banging, desperate. Someone was alive. I froze. Fear exploded through me like ice in the blood. Who was still alive? The banging continued. And then, muffled by the planks but unmistakable, a voice. Alonso. Alonso, please. It was Mateo. Mateo, whom I was sure was dead. Mateo, who lay with a knife in his back. But he wasn't dead. He was just unconscious. And now he was locked in the hold. Locked in a sinking ship. Alonso, I can hear you, please. The water is coming in. Alonso! My hands trembled on the railing. I could unlock the hatch. I could save him. But if I did, he would know. He would know what I did. He would know that I deliberately locked everyone in, that I purposefully sank the ship. He would tell, and I would be hanged as the murderer I was. Alonso, please, don't let me die like this. I closed my eyes. Tears burned. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm sorry. Alonso, for God's sake, I have a mother. She only has me. Please. I lowered the boat. The screams continued as I descended. They continued as I took the oars. They continued as I rowed away from the Santa Estela. Alonso! His scream echoed across the water, through the fog, through my soul. And then the water reached the hatch. The screams became gurgles. Then silence. The Santa Estela tilted, its bow sinking first. The
The sails dragged in the water. The hull groaned, a sound like weeping. Then it sank, slowly, almost gracefully, taking 12 men with it. Some dead, some not. The fog watched everything. And then, as promised, it opened up. A path in the darkness. Calm water. Stars appearing above. Real stars, not the horrifying eyes I had seen before. I rode through that path. The fog closed behind me, sealing my crime in its depths, and I was free. I was found 26 hours later by a Spanish merchant carrack, the Maria Gloria. They found me delirious, almost dead from dehydration, talking incoherently about black fog and drowned men. The captain, a kind man named Bartolomeu, gave me water, food, a place to rest. "You were lucky," he said. "Very lucky." "Your ship?" "Storm," I whispered, the lie coming out so easily. It appeared out of nowhere, a wall of water and wind. The captain ordered me to take the boat, to seek help, but when I looked back, the ship was disappearing, sinking. All of them, all of them. I cried, real tears, because part of what I said was true. They had all died, and I had killed them. "You were brave." Bartolomeu placed his hand on my shoulder. The captain knew what he was doing. He sacrificed himself so you could survive. "Your story. It is important that it be told." "Yes," I agreed. "It needs to be told." And it would be. I would tell everyone who wanted to hear about the terrible storm, about Captain Mendoza's bravery, about how I was the only one lucky enough to escape. I would never mention the fog, never mention the voices, never mention what really happened in those dark waters, because who would believe it? Final diary entries, written weeks later on dry land. April 15th. I am in Seville now. I returned home, to the life I knew. But nothing is the same. People look at me as a hero, the survivor, the one who escaped when everyone else perished. I receive condolences, hugs. They say I am blessed. If only they knew. At night I hear the voices, not from the fog. It kept its promise. It let me go. But I hear the men. Inigo calling as the fog pulls him. Antonio's throat cut. Luis dying in my arms. And Mateo, always Mateo, banging, screaming, pleading. "Alonso, please, don't let me die like this." I wake up every night sweating, screaming. I wake up with the taste of salt in my mouth as if I am drowning. Perhaps I am. May 3rd, I saw Mateo's mother today. She recognized me, ran up to me in the square, tears in her eyes. "You were there," she said, grabbing my hands. "You saw my Mateo. Please tell me, did he suffer?" I looked at that aged face, at those eyes full of pain and hope. "No," I lied. "It was fast. The storm took the ship in minutes. I'm sure he didn't suffer." She cried with relief, thanked me, said it was a comfort to know her son hadn't suffered. I went home and vomited until there was nothing left inside me. Because Mateo suffered. He suffered as the water filled the hold. He suffered as he banged on the locked hatch. He suffered as his lungs filled with sea, and I heard him. Every second. May 20th, I started drinking. It is the only way to silence the voices, to stop the banging I hear in every closed door. My friends say it's trauma, that I need time, that eventually the memories will fade, but they won't, because they are not just memories. They are confessions I will never make. June 14th, I found myself looking at the water today, from the port, watching the waves, looking for signs of black fog. Part of me wants to see it again, wants it to come back and finish what it started, because the fog told the truth. It said that marked survivors eventually join it anyway, and I am marked, deeply. Every breath I take is stolen from Mateo, from Garcia, from all of them. I live with blood that should be in their veins. How can I continue like this? June 30th, I've decided. This diary, these pages stained with guilt and horror, I will leave it at the monastery of San Miguel, with the monks, so that if someday another ship disappears, if someday another man appears alone speaking of impossible storms, they will know the truth, that the fog does not hunt, it cultivates. It plants the seed of betrayal and waits for it to grow, and it always grows, because deep down we all have that dark place, that place that chooses survival over honor, life over loyalty. I always knew I had it. I just never thought I would be tested. July 2nd, I write this by candlelight, just as I wrote the first words of this diary. But this time there is no fog surrounding me. No whispering voices, no ancient creature watching. There is only me and my conscience. And I realized something. The fog didn't need to kill me, because I am already dead. I died the moment I locked that hatch, the moment I chose my life over Mateo's. This body that walks through Seville is not me. It is just a ghost, a shell. The real Alonso Veras sank with the Santa Estela, and perhaps that is fair. Last entry, undated. I'm going to the water today. Not the port, not where there are people to save me. There is a cliff 2 days' journey away. High, sharp rocks below, deep sea. I will jump, and perhaps, if there is justice in this world or the next, I will sink. Sink until I find the Santa Estela. Sink until I find Mateo and the others. And finally, I can ask for forgiveness, although I know I don't deserve it. To whoever finds this diary, understand what the fog does. It does not choose the strongest. It does not choose the bravest. It does not choose the most worthy. It chooses the weakest, the one who, when all others sink, grabs the oar and flees, the one who lives when everyone should die together, the one who betrays. That was me, and may God erase me from the memory of men, because I do not deserve to be remembered. May the fog finally take me, for I was always hers. From the moment I looked at the locked hatch and chose to row, I was the chosen one, not because I was special, but because I was a coward, and cowards survive. It's all they know how to do. The last lines are written with a trembling hand, almost illegible. If you are reading this, it means I am dead, finally. I hope the fog is satisfied. I hope Mateo forgives me. I hope God is more merciful than I deserve, but I doubt it. Alonso Veras, last survivor of the Caravel Santa Estela. The Coward Who Lived note attached to the diary by Friar Ricardo, San Miguel Monastery, July 15, 1494. This diary was found among the belongings of a young man who appeared at our monastery 2 weeks ago. He asked to leave the manuscript with us, saying only that it was important. 3 days later, his body was found at the foot of the cliffs of San Vicente, identified as Alonso Veras, clerk. Initially, we attributed his death to accident, but after reading this diary, I do not know what to believe. We checked the records. There was indeed a ship called Santa Estela that set out on an expedition and never returned. A single survivor was rescued, this Alonso Veras. His story at the time was of a sudden storm, but this diary tells something different, something impossible, something terrifying. I leave it here, in the monastery archives, should its truth ever be needed, and I pray that no other ship finds the black fog. Because if this account is true, if there truly is something out there that cultivates betrayal, that forces good men to become monsters, then God help us all. For the greatest darkness is not on the sea, it is within us. It always has been. Friar Ricardo,